meditations of our hearts be pleasing to you, O God, the eternal God, forevermore. Amen.
Amen.
I'll make sure Diana has the water.
I'm ready. Go.
Sleep and fasting are two of the best medicines. This quote, attributed to Ben Franklin, is applicable to the season of Lent. It seems I've had no problems with sleeping lately, but fasting is a little bit more of a challenge. And I hope that whatever discipline that we have chosen for Lent has been beneficial for us, and that we're all moving closer to God during this time of repentance and thoughtfulness. The last two Sundays had themes of transfiguration and temptation, while this theme for this Sunday is one of trust. Altogether, these varied themes construct a bridge for us as we do some connecting to our faith in our Creator, Sustainer, and Redeemer. It is a time for us to focus on growth in that faith and not get bogged down in our sinfulness that exists because we are human. Nancy and I were lucky enough to actually be in the mountains near Phoenix 2 weeks ago, to enjoy the spiritual setting in the mountains while the lectionary focused on Moses' 40 days with God on Mount Sinai and Jesus being revealed as the true Son of God while high on the mountains with Peter, James, and John was on my mind a lot during that 10-mile hike. It was our last time hiking in the mountains because we were leaving in a couple days. And like Peter, I really didn't want to leave and join a reality that included a long and possible dangerous journey home. But like Moses and his disciples, like Moses and Jesus and his disciples, I came down from the mountain to join the broken world, thinking maybe I could be of some help. We were driving between Amarillo, Texas, and Rolla, Missouri on Ash Wednesday, which is a distance of over 600 miles, and missed Ash Wednesday services for the first time in over 25 years. There were no ashes to go at any of the rest areas that day that we went past. And truthfully, we probably passed hundreds of places to attend the service. But, to tell you the truth, I really didn't actively look to find one, even though in this day and age it's pretty easy to do. Even out in the middle of nowhere, they've got towers, But, as exhilarated as I was to be in the mountains on the Sunday prior, I didn't feel terribly sinful to miss a service that requires our need for penitence. These two experiences sum up what faith maintenance is for us, for many of us. It's a whole lot easier to have faith when you're high up in the mountains than when you're in the valleys. The readings for today talk of trust. Abram and Sarai obeying what God requests results in them being recognized as model citizens of the kingdom. And 2,000 years later after that, Paul writes in Romans that it was in faith in God alone that justified Abraham. Abraham's trust is to be the model of our faith in Jesus. It wasn't easy for Abraham and Sarah as they began this new life as senior citizens, but they put their trust in God and all was good. They didn't make the mistake of trying to have God rationalize all his plans for them. They just went. The story of the meeting between Jesus and Nicodemus can be summarized as what happens when we put too much thought into trusting what God is trying to tell us that is indeed certain. I really do find Nicodemus likable, as he represents to me an enlightened man who finds joy in discovering what makes a mystery work. By his training as a Pharisee and a member of the Sanhedrin, a sort of supreme court of religion at that time, he was extremely knowledgeable of the law, and he was very skeptical of practices outside the law, such as matters of spirituality and supernatural events and beings. He was very conservative. However, he had a side that was searching for more, and he had this covert meeting with Jesus to check things out. He wanted to be certain if there was any rational basis for what this populist rabbi preached and how it was connected to the miracles that Jesus was known to perform. He knew God was in the plan somewhere. He didn't understand where. Cyril of Alexandria, who was a church leader in the late 4th and early 5th centuries, wrote this regarding Nicodemus. Nicodemus imagined that he can become pious enough to attain salvation merely by marveling at the wonders Jesus had done. He does not know yet that Jesus is divine, nor does he understand the plan of salvation according to the flesh. He approaches Jesus as a mere man and has only a slight conception of who he really is. Now, to me, that means too much rationalization and not enough allowance for the mystery of faith. I don't know if Nicodemus ever did find Jesus divine. He does have a couple more actions recorded in John's Gospel. When Jesus is about to be tried, he presses his colleagues on the issue of proper trial etiquette, that of letting the accused be heard before being judged. And a little bit later, he, along with Joseph of Arimathea, they prepared Jesus' body for burial after crucifixion. These subsequent acts weren't done underneath the cover of darkness like his first meeting, and that surely brought some rebuke from his peers, but there's really nothing further to suggest that Nicodemus became a convert to Christianity. We should take note of this activity because it shows that while Nicodemus had interest in Jesus and his message, he seems to never have taken that step to be born from above. Like many, Nicodemus didn't allow the mystery of faith to overcome his rational thought process. He was so close and yet remained so far away from salvation. We have several persons interacting with God in our readings for today, and all of them have different views about how much to believe what God tells them to be true. Faith seems to be that way. Everyone is somewhere along a continuum line that leads to salvation. Some act and grow with experience and time, and like most things, it depends how much practice one wants to put into a discipline to see what outcome there is. That is the purpose of Lent, I believe, is to give us that time to do some practicing to see, where are we along that line and what can we do actively to increase our faith. Anne Lamont wrote this next little bit that may help us as we try to increase our faith, but a lot of times we fear we're going to fail doing it. We'll be back where we were because there's always so many questions, it seems. But she has this quote that says, "The opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty." Certainty is missing the point entirely. Faith includes noticing the mess, the emptiness, the discomfort, and letting it be there until some light returns. She continues, "Faith also means reaching deeply within for the sense one was born with. The sense, for example, to go for a walk. Sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we have to walk away from the situation, look at it from a different view, let it go for a while. I agree that faith must be an active rather than a passive activity for any growth to occur. It was with great activity that Abram and Sarai followed God's request, while Nicodemus was only passively impressed with the signs of Jesus and couldn't bring himself to see that he had an opportunity to join God's kingdom through the water and the Spirit. He lacked that trust that Abram and Sarai had. Nicholas wanted certainty, whereas faith was good enough for Abram and Sarai. The Reverend Marshall Jolly includes in his sermon this week for the Sermons at Work the following poem by Yehuda Amachi that describes a human heart aching for increased faith. It is a poem. From the place we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard. But doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole, a plow, and a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. Reverend Jolly concludes, in the midst of the Lenten journey, may we allow our doubts and questions to dig into our certainty. May we be broken open by a love that evades even our wildest imagining until at last we arrive and we come to the foot of the cross. Amen.
Amen.